prefer to worm farm than I do compost in many ways. Out of plywood to in-ground system that I can put into the garden bed. Worm castings that you'll make from it is like gold. They're some of the most important creatures, worms, because basically what they're doing is they're processing the soil and they're inoculating it with microorganisms through their own stomach, putting it back into the soil. Their byproduct that they make, which is the worm castings, or worm poo, some people like to refer to it, is essentially acting, well, it's holding all those microorganisms, but that then acts and inoculates the soil, and those microorganisms spread out and they breed in the soil, but they act as a catalyst between the nutrients and the plant's roots. How do you know that your castings are ready? Well, it ends up looking really brown. You'll be able to form, again, as we mentioned earlier about soil structure, you'll be able to actually form a ball and hold it in your hand. It will hold its shape, but then it will simply crumble away, okay? Again, I use it by just sprinkling a little bit around the plant's roots and then watering it in. The way I look at it, it's a bit like if you're making yogurt or you're making beer, you've got to add a culture. You want to purchase some worms from your local, either you can get them from a local nursery or you can buy them online. I'll list some resources there also in the show notes. We'll recommend that you don't overfeed them though, because if you overfeed them, it will rot, it will smell, start to attract flies, so it's not ideal. However, you don't want to underfeed them, because if you underfeed them, they will disappear. They'll go elsewhere to look for food. So the other key to looking after worms and being successful at looking after worms is their moisture level in the water. I like to hose mine often and water them out, give them a good flush. You've got to remember, worms are predominantly made up of water. They like very moist environments, and if the farm dries out, they'll leave to go find moisture. And often you'll find the underside of a lid that they'll be sitting there, because that's where the moisture condenses. The temperature is another important factor to keeping happy worms. It's the fluctuation in terms of the temperature that they don't like. So they also like a reasonably balanced pH level. The breaking down of organic matter within the actual worm farm itself tends to become acidic, so it's worth occasionally adding some lime. Probably my secret weapon to gardening is worm castings. The other thing you can do is you can make a worm castings tea rather than the worm runoff. So essentially, when you got those worm farms, they've got the tap on the side. That runoff is actually just not wormweed. People call it wormweed. It's the runoff of all of that food waste breaking down. Hopefully, I've given you some valuable information there. If you feel confused about anything or want more clarification, please leave a comment below. And on the next lesson, we'll look at your space and how to create a veggie patch itself.